Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Untitled Reviews. This being a show where we talk about TV shows that are dramas. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Kung Fu. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Well, first and foremost, we had Nikki initially having this interesting dream, but then we end up finding out that Mia had the same thing too. They were getting flashes of this dream of a pregnant woman being drinking some red liquid by some woman in black. And so, obviously, Ryan's still running tests on Mia, trying to determine her situation, obviously how those stones from last episode, or what that correlates, what that means to her in the grand scheme of things. And Ryan notices that, I think subsequently, since that encounter, her vitals have kind of been going up and up. So it's like, right, she's probably like, I think it's almost like, because of the special qualities of her being from a warrior bloodline and a guardian bloodline, it's basically like everything in her is like surging and like, I think, ramping up because of it. I think she's kind of getting like, God, I don't know what the word necessarily would be, but I think on just like all the stuff inside of her body is just like kicking into overdrive a little bit because of it. So at the same time, like Nikki was ultimately able to track down Henry and ends up helping him out because he's been captured by the Wang Zai, and they want to, like, they're grilling him about like what happened, and he was like, I found the guy dead, and they were like, I don't believe you. It's kind of sad his own father didn't believe him. And obviously I guess she's not, I wonder if the Wang Zai actually have a leadership or like a hierarchy. Maybe they do. Because the woman that his dad was talking to, she seemed to be in charge, but Daniel was like, I'm not going to listen to you anymore. I'm like, you could just do that? She's like, whatever, like, I guess it's more like a democratic group. It's kind of like, right, like, there probably is a leadership to it, but I don't know, like, they're probably like, I don't know if it's like one large organization that spreads out into different cells or not. That's what I'm curious about. So, like, is this group here in San Francisco just one cell, or is this like the main crux of the group, and then they just break off from the main crux to do all I'm curious how we didn't really get into the Wang Zai too much. We got a little bit into their history and stuff, but luckily Nikki showed up when she did. Daniel wasn't going to let anything happen to his son. He's fronting like, right, I need this information from you, but it's like they could tell he was hiding stuff. That's because Henry didn't want to talk about the Tans, because also it's like, right, I don't know who you people are. I don't know. Well, because he'd heard about the Wang Zai being like a criminal organization, and it turns out his dad's been a part of this. So I guess that's also plays into why his dad wasn't in his life a lot. You know, that was part of like him being away and keeping them a distance from them, because he's been a part of the Wang Zai since he was a kid, and it does seem like, I mean, a teenager, and it is a hereditary thing, so it makes me wonder, like, was his dad one too? So it is just kind of passed down in the family, because the organizations, the Wang Zai have existed was like for 100 years. Their main goal is to keep powerful objects out of people's hands. That's why I'm almost like, so where the hell were you with the weapons last season? You didn't step in then and there, but I guess like there was just so many moving factors in play, because to be fair, like Jilan was grabbing them up at the time. So that's also why I'm wondering, like, why you got beef with Nikki? Because they were like, yo, you can't trust me. I'm like, shut up. Nikki's done so much more than you guys have. You guys didn't do anything about the 8 weapons last season. That was all Nikki. So I'm like, who are you to complain? I guess they were worried because, do they not know Nikki's from a warrior bloodline? They probably just look at her as like some X factor in all of this. So they probably think like, oh, Nikki could be someone dangerous, or we can, yeah, she's mixed up in this, but they must not know her like true lineage, that she's from the warrior bloodline or something, that she's connected to this and the Guardians. You would think they would know, because they made sure to try. Daniel and her had talked previously about trying to get Henry away from Nikki. That's why I'm like, I don't get what's your beef. You should be working together, but that's what I thought was interesting. But I guess it's like, Henry already didn't trust him, but then it's like, he had even more reason not to tell them about everything, like Mia and everything they're doing in their own battle against Tan and such. But eventually they open up and talk about it. Because it's all, the Wang Zai also connect to the Bell, because 2 of the people connected to the Bell situation back in over 100 years ago or whatever or one of them ended up being, wasn't he like a member of the Wanzai or something? It was two people involved because they were Chinese immigrants themselves, so that's why they ended up connecting. So, but I like that they are expanding the lore of this world, being like, right, it's not like it's not just China that has like there's not just Chinese related mystical objects. Their job is to go after objects and mystical stuff all over the place. Maybe that's the justification why they didn't get involved with the 8 weapons, because they were all busy dealing with other like mystical stuff out there in the world. Because like every culture has their mystical side of things. So it's like this episode dives into, what was it, Scottish, or was it specifically Celtic, like mysticism or something like that, because they're trying to find a map that will lead to a scroll/ritual that will counter the bell, because they now know, because of intel, Tan is now having, his daughter ended up making a new bell, so to be able to stop it, they're going to need a spell to counter that. And jumping ahead a little bit, I'm curious, will that have any effect on Mia at all? Like, would this spell not only stop the bell, but could it on some level help appease Mia's circumstances? We'll have to wait and see, because there's not much really to go on when it comes to handling her circumstances, because we found out she's not just one of a kind, she's one of 2 of a kind. So we kind of learn a little bit about how the hybrid situation, which I love that word kind of getting thrown around now. And once again, CWY is just because, hybrids on Vampire Diaries / the original / Legacies. Well, though Legacies doesn't have any hybrids, it has tribrid. It has a tribrid, but regardless. That Mia isn't the only hybrid that's ever existed. There's been, the way they made it seem like it was only one other one. So it seems like, I guess, almost like every one comes about every 1,000 years, but they're almost considered abominations because of that. Regardless, kind of filling in some of that stuff. Mia touched the stone, and it already does something to both Mia and Nikki, but because of Mia's guardian blood and warrior blood, it sends her even more in overdrive. Like, because Nikki can feel the spark as a descendant of the warrior bloodline, but not to the full extent that Mia does, and it sends her into a dreamlike almost coma, and Nikki ends up following her into the dream world, because this all dates back to an alchemist who was trying to help, what was it? I wanted to say they said it was like the first emperor who was trying to find a means of immortality, and she experimented on people, which included pregnant women and such, and some of those people died, and her form of immortality was living on through people's dreams, like by living in through that is a form of like kind of like putting your consciousness in someone's dream. And it seems like that has been successful for her, because it turns out that she's lived the entire time following along the bloodlines. She is specifically, because she made not only the warrior bloodline, she's also the one responsible for creating the guardian bloodline as well. And I thought it was interesting that before Nikki could do it, Pei Ling was like, right, don't do this. And I thought that was so interesting. I was like, wow, Pei Ling telling you not to do this to try and find another way or something. I was like, oh, that's weird. Like, why would she suddenly come up now, like when you were just about, But now we end up finding out later on that was never Pei Ling the entire time. Because like, Nikki was like, just give up on her. It's like, right, my Sifu would never tell me to do that. You're not Pei Ling. And it's like, oh, you saw through me. She was the alchemist. Ever before she even entered the dream, she'd already, the alchemist was already messing with Nikki, because the moment Nikki and Mia came in contact with those stones, they opened up the pathway so that she could go after not only Mia, but also Nikki now too, because the alchemist exists, she flows through their bloodline and exists on some subconscious level. They are buried in the DNA of their respective bloodlines, so. But she told the story of how the previous hybrid was born, and she was a great warrior, was hidden away, except that the hybrid is too much power for one person to hold, and she basically goes crazy and would be basically her own destruction. So the other, the Guardians had to come together. I know it's the Guardians and the warrior bloodlines had to come together to defeat her. And it basically seemed like they killed her. Maybe they locked her up and she eventually died, but it's like, wow. And the same thing is happening with Mia. I thought that was fascinating that it seems like the Alchemist is like, no, we need to she needs to die. And I was like, I'm surprised you're all about creating stuff, but I think the hybrid is too much of a wild card, because maybe the hybrid will seek the destruction, and maybe that's what she's worried about, because it's like, right, if the hybrid goes out and loses control, the hybrid could potentially end up killing all of the Guardian family bloodline, as well as the warrior bloodline, and the Alchemist would have nowhere else to go. It put it into her immortality. I guess that's my justification for why her going wild, like why you would want her, because I thought maybe it was going to be a thing of, oh, if Mia goes, what are you going to do? You're going to, like, we're going to go on some, like, I guess Voldemort-like thing of like, oh, I'm a Horcrux your body, well, possess your body type of thing. I mean, I guess truth be told, is maybe to some extent you could look at the Guardian and Warrior bloodline as kind of her Horcruxes. But I was wondering if, like, maybe that's also what she's planning on doing. She's trying to hijack Mia's body. Could be the end result that she's aiming for, but still. Nikki ended up going toe-to-toe with the Alchemist. But it's like, right, you're in my world where I have all the power. But it's like, no, you're going through me, and this is my bloodline. This is me. I'm the one that's got all the power here. And so she was able to kind of get rid of the Alchemist for now. And she sent Mia on a journey because she wanted to break Mia by shattering her mind and her heart in one fell swoop. She will make it so that Mia will never want to leave, and she'll be defenseless, and she'll stay here and die. And the event she was seeing was, because we know Russell Tan was responsible for her mom's death. I didn't know he directly killed her. That was surprising to me. Maybe we already knew that. Because it's Russell Tan, he usually gets his other people. I mean, to be fair, when it came to the power, I'm blanking on it, with the energy from all 8 of the weapons last season, he got his hands dirty when it came to that actual fight between him, Jilon, and Nikki. But typically he'd hire someone else to do it. So him actually pulling the trigger on her was crazy. And it's like, oh, and Mia has even more motivation. She already would have hated you if you had hired someone. You still would have been responsible, but it makes you even more responsible, the fact that you pulled the trigger, obviously. So, but the sword was already gone by the time Russell got to Meishi. But then he found out about Mia, and it's like, right, Mia will fight you and she will stop you. And he's like, oh, I'm happy to see that. Mia felt like she had to see this because it's the first time she's seen her mom in so long, and now it's like, this is like her mom alive again, and now it's like, right, I shouldn't have left. You told me the world was a dangerous place. I ran away. I shouldn't have done that. And she wanted to see her mom, like even having to witness seeing her mom die, because she had to see it. I have to witness this because I wasn't there when she needed me. She died alone because I wasn't there. So it's like, this time I can at least be there for her. But Nikki's like, you don't need to witness that, and I will witness it for the both of us, you know? That's the heartbreaking thing of it. Luckily, Nikki was able to get Mia out of there, and they're having a proper funeral for Meishi, not only for Mia's sake, but also for Mei Li's sake as well, because they were never able to properly mourn her loss. And what's also interesting too is, based on that memory, it turns out, despite who he is, we found out who I thought was home dude who lived, because I was like, because didn't he not know? Because I thought it was the guy who actually was like, obviously like had a thing for Meishi that we met last season. I thought he was the one, but now in retro, because I think I brought that up earlier in the season, because they kept bringing up who actually buried her. And I thought it was him, but it's like, he didn't actually know she was dead, right? I don't think he did. I think he ended up finding out she was dead the moment Henry, Evan, and Nikki found out she was dead. But it turns out Russell Tan's the one that buried her. It's like, despite him being the super villain he is still someone, and it's like, right, I will still honor you. You know, you being the warrior that you are, you deserve a warrior, that I will give you a proper burial. It is only right that despite all that he's done, he still has some semblance of humanity in him, which is interesting, which I find that fascinating. But it turns out the Alchemist isn't done. In fact, I wonder, are we going to see a lot more of her, or, now that she's unlocked inside of Nikki because of her interactions with the stones, now she'll probably come to Nikki all the time. Question is she going to continue being Pei Ling sometimes? It's the same actress, obviously, but I wonder what was the correlation with that? I wonder, why did they decide to do that? Like, is there some ancestral connection on that front, the reason why they did that, or is it just beneficial because it's like, well, is it just because that's supposed to be a substitute? Like, is that really what she looked like back then? Because her face was covered up. Maybe just for that twist and reveal, they kept her face hidden. Or is it supposed to just be symbolic of, like, right, you see your master all the time, and just to kind of have a better grip over you, I'm gonna look like someone you love and trust all the time. I'm not sure. But that's why I'm like wondering, because she's been seeing Pei Ling recently, and this was before she interacted with the stone, so any Pei Lings we've seen before now were not fake Pei Lings. That was the real Pei Ling giving her advice. So I'm wondering, will we see what that's going to look like going forward, whether it's going to be, it would be beneficial considering Nikki literally will have an angel and a devil on her shoulder with that. Because at the end of the day, Nikki didn't tell anyone, not even Mia, about the dangers of the hybrid blood inside of her. And Nikki's saying, like, right, I'll teach her so she'll have control. Like, you won't have to worry about it. But then the Alchemist is like, right, you're going to eventually regret this, and you're going to wish you had let me kill her when you had the chance. So I'm curious what that's going to be like, because maybe on some correlation, there might be a situation where maybe they're going to be two separate incidents, or maybe they'll be the same, that the bell and the stones will awaken something in Mia, and that's when she will be a renegade killing machine. Maybe that's what that'll be. Like, she'll turn, like, the bell will also do its thing, but maybe even if you counter the bell, which I think they ultimately will, Mia will probably lose control, and Nikki will have no choice but to choose, like, can she save Mia, or will she have no choice but to put Mia down? That's going to be the interesting thing to see. So we have all of that. On the other front, like I said, we had Henry helping out his dad. In fact, they knew there was a painting that was stolen. What was it the O'Reilly family or something like, or I think it was like the O'Brien family had a painting that on the back of it led to the direction so that they can find the scroll or whatever that has the ritual that'll allow them to counter the bell. And Daniel and Henry had to work together on that. And I thought that was pretty dope, because he's like, no, like, I'm going to let me and Nikki are going to handle this. Because they have their own squad and how they handle things. But Daniel's like, no, I've got my own means of handling things. So they came in as repairmen and got it done. And I think it was a nice little thing of like, right, here's Henry and his dad working together. And it definitely shows like how good their bond is. And them kind of dishing out some knuckle sandwiches. I know it's a very like old school terminology. It's like, I can't even remember the last time I said the actual phrase knuckle sandwich. Regardless, them kind of having fun together and just like, right. It's almost beneficial, like, interestingly enough, because like obviously we know Henry had his like his troublemaking days, well, back in the day. So it's almost interesting. Obviously this is for the greater good, but still him rolling with his his dad and the group they're a part of, being kind of almost a mystical version of kind of Robin Hood to some extent. They're a combination of like, I guess, some Indiana Jones meets like the group from Warehouse 13 meets I just think that's kind of interesting. And Daniel offers to bring Henry with him, because for him, at the end of the day, he said he left Henry because he's like, right, I saw the men that you were going to grow into becoming, and I didn't want to hamper that. So I kind of regret lying to you and your mom and things turning out the way they did. But in the end, Henry became the great person that he is. So it's like, it all worked out. But it's like, right, I'm going to give you I forgot about that. Because I brought it up earlier. I was like, oh, was Daniel's dad one? And it's like, yes, he was, because Daniel referenced, he said, I want you to have a choice, because my father didn't give me one. It was forced upon me, so I'm giving you a choice. And Henry appreciated it, but he's like, nah, like, here with Nikki is where I need to be. And that look on Daniel's face is kind of like no, you don't have a choice. You can't walk away from this, because it is a familial thing. So it is probably a thing of, they need their successors, and Henry is his successor, so he needs Henry in play. And he's like, right. I mean, for one, it's his way to keep his family together. Like, it's like, right, I can have a relationship with my son, but they probably also need to have their successor in line, because it's like probably like there's no turning away from this. Like, I want to make it seem like you have a choice, but you don't. So, and I think, and that's why I'm curious, will it end up being a thing where Henry will not only be on the opposite side of his father, but be forced to be on the opposing side of the opposing side of Nikki. We'll have to wait and see how that plays out as well. But like that look on his dad's face, almost like not like I understand, son. The look on his face is like, yeah, I'm sorry, son, but it's not going to work out like that. It definitely had that type of feel to it. So we'll see. On the other side of things, tying the Dennis and Althea situation together, Dennis confronts his dad about, his dad heard about, like, oh, you punched Chase Matheson. He's like, Dad, are you doing business with Chase? He's like, most of the business has been, like, separated, where I'm like, I'm not doing any business with him with the exception of, like, this one thing, which Dennis is like, that's not good, that's not okay. His dad's trying to be like, oh, it's not black and white, because the company that Chase is connected to, I guess it's like, right, there's so much good that could be used with it or whatever, but it's still associated with a shitty human being. I mean, it's not like it's, I mean, this should still matter, even if it wasn't someone you knew, knowing what he had done, like, that should mean something to you, you know, especially when your son is asking you for this. But it's your own daughter-in-law. You know, what if it was your own daughter? Would you still make those excuses? Is it because you had that separation of, well, it's not my daughter, even though Althea is family now, she's still not your daughter, so you're not as concerned about it. But it's like, right, put your daughter in Althea's shoes. Like, would you really be okay with that? And Dennis told him, like, hey, either you need to cut ties with Chase entirely, but his dad's like, no, like, things aren't so black and white. I'm like, no, like, in this particular case, they kind of are, but it's the situation of, it's not like we're not mainly in business. We're just connected through this one thing. But the fact is that you have to make an excuse. The fact is you didn't tell Dennis speaks volumes, but he thinks like, no, I'm the one that's in charge. You don't get to tell me what to do, kid. I'm your dad. So turns out he made I guess an easy choice and was like, okay, then leave the business because I want nothing. You have nothing to do with it then, son. And just like, right, cuts him off completely. How his mom's going to respond to that, she might probably be on his father's side. And even if she isn't, he probably still has most of the say. So, because I don't know how much say his mom has in the business, like how much like of a percentage of it or whatever she might have in control or something like that, you know. Because even if she does, like, he might still end up having like a majority share in the family. So she might not be able to do anything about it. We'll see. Because the sad thing is, Althea is like pitching her app and no one's accepting it, but she's pretty sure that the person who's shutting it down is Chase, because despite everything, he has the connections and all he has to do is spread some nasty rumors. Luckily enough, she ran into Evan at the bar. And Evan's like, yeah, I get it. Like, he's like, I left my job in the, under a suspicious cloud. And yes, you caught me here day drinking during the day, but I haven't given up. And you, Althea, aren't the type of person to give up either, no matter what your circumstances, whatever circumstances are stacked against you. Because Althea has a good idea, but no one's going to put money into it if they're hearing all these nasty rumors and Chase pulling and pushing people away. So, and Dennis has the money. Well, she thought Dennis had the money at the time, but she made a promise that she wanted to do things on her own and never wanted to ever take money from Dennis and his family. And Evan's kind of like, that's kind of a crazy thing to say. It's like, right, if you had the opportunity, use it, especially if it means being able to make this whole thing work. So, I'm still curious to see what Evan is going to do work-wise. Because I'm sure it's probably not going to be easy to ever get a job anywhere else because of said cloud that he left his previous job under. So, but Althea kind of got drunk, went home, talked to Dennis, and Dennis was like, honey, yeah, we don't have the money. So they're also going to have to, they don't have that as a cushion anymore. I'm sure there's also the aspect of Dennis being like, what am I going to do? Like, he's probably always had his family to be a bit of a cushion for him. So, I get that. So, question is, like, right, without them and everything going on with Althea, like, things are probably going to get rough around the house because of all of this. Just because both of them are trying to figure out What are they going to do? How they're going to make them way forward? I wonder, is it going to be a thing of they will like be fully in business together? Like, will Dennis kind of jump on board the app thing, or will they continue to stay separated on that front? Because this is like Althea's baby. This is her pet project. I mean, not even just a pet project. It's her business, or what it is, her future. So we'll see what kind of goes, where things kind of go from there. But I'm excited to see where the next episode ends up taking us going forward with all of this. But really, that's all I'm going to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and good